Whoopi Goldberg just got a reality check and it was brutal. Whoopi Goldberg just learned the hard way that sarcasm doesn't just roll off, it hits back. After getting tag-teamed by Gutfeld and Timpf, it wasn't just a simple disagreement on TV. It was more like watching a roast. And Whoopi was the main course. She didn't just lose an argument, she completely lost control of the conversation. One moment, she was confidently ranting on The View, and the next, it looked like she was mentally Googling how to bounce back from public embarrassment. So what exactly happened?
It's about The View. It's become like a medical...
Why did it spiral so fast? Stick around, because what went down wasn't just a takedown. It was a masterclass in how to expose hypocrisy, all while keeping your cool. It all started like any other day on The View. Wednesday seemed normal enough. Whoopi, real name Karen Johnson, was back in her usual spot at The View's table, acting like she's the queen of daytime TV.
Hospital that displays human misfailure. Like, it's like here, let's look at this political oddity. You know, it's like, it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that. But The View is a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. You know, how can you now speak the truth when for years you've been telling lie after lie after lie? Now you're carrying this big bag of rocks around you because it's too harmful for their ego to admit that we really were dishonest. And they could be honest. All they would have to say is, look, we hate Trump so much. We were willing to lie about Joe Biden because we felt he was preferable. We thought our lying and our cover-up was on your behalf. Just say that. You're still scum, but at least you're an honest scum.
She's got an Oscar, some Emmys, a Grammy, and a Tony. And for years, she's acted like that gives her the right to speak with authority on politics, society, and morality. She's been at that table giving fiery speeches, dropping dramatic one-liners, and swinging between emotional rants and scolding lectures. But this time, that high horse she's been riding finally buckled under the pressure. Enter Gutfeld. He didn't come out guns blazing, no shouting, no insults. Just calm, witty, and painfully logical responses that made Whoopi's arguments crumble in real time.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. Well, not if you're Whoopi Goldberg, a.k.a. Karen Johnson. Yeah, who knew Whoopi was a Karen? I thought that was only for white people, like Toyota Priuses and skiing.
It wasn't dramatic. It was surgical. Gutfeld quietly tore it all down. Gutfeld came in like the guy at a barbecue flipping burgers while casually explaining why your whole worldview doesn't add up. He didn't attack Whoopi's character. He attacked her contradictions.
No, it's not about race.
No,
it's about
a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man.
Yeah, that's heroically stupid. Even for The View. What did she think Hitler meant when he said master race? The 100-meter dash at the Berlin Olympics? So for the first time in The View's history, it's not about race. Just some whites exterminating 6 million other whites. So what's the big deal?
She claims to fight for freedom of speech, yet often tries to shut down anyone who disagrees with her. She acts like she's standing up for the underdog, but only when it suits her. Gutfeld laid it all out with a smirk and a few well-placed truths. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was like watching someone stack up all the pieces of a flimsy argument and then gently knock them over like a game of Jenga. Whoopi, who often presents herself as the moral voice of reason, suddenly looked more like someone who was acting out a script that hadn't been updated in a while. Then came Timpf, and she brought the fire. If Gutfeld brought the logic, Timpf brought the comedy. And she didn't hold back. Kat walked into the mess with her trademark dry humor and absolutely dismantled the image Whoopi has tried to maintain for years. She didn't even pretend Whoopi's arguments deserved a thoughtful debate. Instead, she treated it like what it really was, a lot of noise and not much substance. Kat pointed out the obvious. Whoopi constantly claims to be silenced or attacked, yet she has more uninterrupted screen time than most politicians.
Facts. Oh, it's so cute when one of their side gets punished. They sulk like they ran out of raw cookie dough in the green room. Yeah, ABC suspended Whoopi for 2 weeks because she said the Holocaust had nothing to do with race. She said this on a show called The View, which makes everything about race. Except now.
She claims to be the voice of the people, but she broadcasts from a multi-million-dollar studio while surrounded by people who clap at everything she says. It wasn't mean. It wasn't even personal. It was clinical, like a doctor diagnosing a chronic case of self-importance. The illusion cracked and everyone saw it. What made this moment so powerful wasn't just what Gutfeld and Timpf said. It was how the public reacted. Clips of the exchange went viral. People weren't just entertained. They were shocked at how easy it was to see through the act once someone dared to poke holes in it. Twitter exploded with sarcasm. TikTok users lip-synced Gutfeld's jabs, and Instagram reels turned the whole scene into memes. Suddenly, people started asking the real question, were we ever supposed to take The View seriously? The whole setup started to look like a play, complete with applause signs and carefully rehearsed outrage.
Kat, did you ever see such a group? It's amazing how Joy and Whoopi became the smart ones.
For me, the most shocking thing about the conversation was how truly boring it was. They're like, well, the cicadas, they're cicadas. Okay, but it was like every 100 years. No, it's every 17 years. Do you know how many Emmys this show has? 31.
31 Emmys?
This show has 31. I mean, I'd hate to see the conversations that don't make headlines. What?
And we don't have a single
Not a
Emmy.
single
We don't
one.
Have a what does that tell you about the Emmys, Kat? Yes, thank you, Mr. Boo.
And once the curtain was pulled back, the set looked cheap. This wasn't a culture war. It was a wake-up call. Here's the truth: Gutfeld and Timpf didn't destroy Whoopi Goldberg. They didn't need to. They just pointed out that the pedestal she was standing on wasn't real. They revealed that all the shouting, all the righteous anger, and all the dramatic moments on The View weren't based on truth or principle. They were performances. Performances that no longer felt convincing. And once the illusion broke, there was no going back. It wasn't about politics. It was about accountability. This wasn't a right versus left moment. It wasn't even about who's right. It was about the fact that you can't just sit on a daytime talk show for decades, lecturing everyone else, without ever being questioned.
I just want to hit myself in the face so I can feel something. You know, it's like so boring. She's like, yeah, I like Instacart, but don't worry, I tip the poors. But, you know, Joy, you actually don't like Instacart and you do like the store. And then Joy is like, yeah, I do. I like to go to the store. I like to walk around and see what's at the store, what I do want, what I don't want. Maybe I want tuna fish, and I just want to hit myself.
For years, Whoopi had built her image on being untouchable. She was the wise voice in the room, the truth teller, the one who always knew better. But this time, she got called out. And instead of fighting back with facts, she just looked, stunned. The message was clear: loud doesn't equal right. What this whole moment proved was simple. Just because you're famous doesn't mean you're always right. And just because you speak louder than everyone else doesn't mean you're saying something meaningful. Sometimes, all it takes is someone calm and clever to say, wait, that doesn't make sense, and the whole illusion falls apart. Gutfeld and Timpf didn't raise their voices. They didn't throw insults.
Nah, you look tantalizing. You know, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Because COVID also taught Sunny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered.
3 years, that's when I discovered Instacart, and I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well, and it's so that's been an issue, I think, for the company. But man, you can get toiletries, you can get fire logs.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable.
They just told the truth. with a little wit and a lot of confidence. The real breakdown happened off camera. Whoopi didn't break down crying on air. There were no meltdowns or dramatic exits. But the real damage was in the silence that followed. The realization that people were no longer buying what she was selling. That silence? It was louder than any applause she's ever gotten. The show went on, but something had changed. And deep down, Whoopi and the audience knew it. Final thoughts, a moment that was long overdue. This wasn't just about Whoopi. It was about all the media figures who've built their careers on outrage without reflection, on volume without substance. And finally, someone held up a mirror.
Kat, how many co-hosts has The View had since it first started? I've lost count. I don't know any of these people.
No, that's because they don't stick around long enough. There have been 17 since 1997. That's a lot. That's because they're women.
Oh, really?
They're hormones. They're changing their minds. I don't want to work here. Yes, I do. That's why. Women are always changing jobs every day.
Wow,
I just quit.
Direct the mail to Catherine Timpf. Not me. I disavow everything she said.
Gutfeld and Timpf didn't just win an argument. They reminded everyone that real credibility doesn't come from fame, followers, or airtime. It comes from honesty, consistency, and being willing to hear the truth even when it's uncomfortable. In the end, it wasn't a takedown. It was a reality check. And Whoopi! She didn't get canceled. She just got exposed. The slow fall of daytime royalty. Whoopi Goldberg has always been a household name. From her groundbreaking acting career to her unique comedic voice and her decades-long stint on The View, she's been an icon in entertainment and culture. But sometimes icons get comfortable, so comfortable, they forget the world around them has changed. What Greg Gutfeld and Kat Timpf did wasn't just a takedown, it was a mirror being held up to that comfort. The kind of mirror that doesn't flatter. And for someone like Whoopi, who has grown used to being the one doing the talking, being the target instead of the host was jarring.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sunny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter.
Over the years, The View has changed. What started as a platform for open conversation among women of different backgrounds slowly turned into a stage for one-sided outrage. And Whoopi! She became the main act. She developed a rhythm open with a sigh, raise the voice, throw in a historical reference, maybe toss in a celebrity name or two, and then seal it all off with a look of disappointment aimed at whoever dared to challenge her point of view. It worked for a long time, until someone stopped clapping. The problem with echo chambers: it's easy to feel invincible when you're always surrounded by people who agree with you. Applause from the studio audience, nods from co-hosts, retweets from fans. All of it forms a protective bubble where criticism barely gets through. But bubbles eventually pop. And that's what happened here. The brilliance of Gutfeld and Timpf's approach was that they didn't try to shout over Whoopi. They didn't throw around emotional appeals. Instead, they gently, even humorously, pointed out the cracks in the logic, the contradictions, the performative side of her arguments that had started to feel less like passionate advocacy and more like a well-rehearsed show.
Step it up a little bit.
I was so shocked that she answered that way. That she said there's nothing she'd do differently. And then in case there's any questions, for her to say, by the way, I was involved in all of it.
Yeah.
But then you're running as the opposition. That would have been so easy to just say, there's so much I could change and I can't wait to change. It's not like they're going to ask you, what would you do?
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you're actually going to be pressed on specifics in that interview. I mean, the way that Whoopi was looking at her.
Yeah. Oh, man. That was sexual.
That was very, no, it was very Hallmark Christmas Channel.
Yes.
For the first time in a long time, someone didn't play along. And the public noticed. why this moment struck a chord. People are tired. Tired of being lectured by celebrities who live lives so far removed from the average person's experience. Tired of being told what to think by people who haven't lived a regular life in decades. And tired of the idea that fame automatically equals wisdom. So when Whoopi, from her Manhattan studio, starts speaking on behalf of everyday Americans, it rings hollow. It doesn't sound like empathy. It sounds like a monologue from someone who hasn't had to do their own grocery shopping in years. Kat Timpf captured that perfectly. Her biting comment about Instacart wasn't just a joke. It was a snapshot of the disconnect between people like Whoopi and the people she claims to represent. The "I tip the poor" attitude might have been exaggerated for effect, but it nailed the tone deafness that's become all too common in Hollywood-style activism.
Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
A celebrity revolution or implosion? This wasn't an isolated incident. We're living in a moment where public trust in celebrities and media figures is crumbling fast. There's a growing awareness that the same people who tell others to check their privilege often live in multi-million-dollar homes.
But thanks to liberal privilege, Whoopi hangs on, which is fine since she apologized. But not before digging an even deeper hole than the one in her head.
Fly private and haven't faced a real consequence in decades. Gutfeld and Timpf didn't just expose Whoopi. They highlighted a much larger problem, one that spans across entertainment, news, and influencer culture. The problem is simple. Many public figures have stopped listening. And in doing so, they've become the very thing they once criticized. Once upon a time, Whoopi was a rebel. She broke barriers. She challenged norms. She made people laugh while forcing them to think. But over time, she went from being the underdog to becoming the gatekeeper. And the